Salutations, listeners. Si valis valeo.
Va Baguda. Sorry, man.
Mark jumping in with Valamagulus. Nanu. Thank you for tuning in. This is Three Men in a Basement, and we are the Ultra Crepidarians. My name is Colin McLeod.
Mark Alp here.
Buenas noches, Timothy Magic.
Ooh, a little flair on that one. In this podcast...
It should be bonsoir.
If you say so.
Mon ami.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir. Mon ami.
Isn't that a pastry?
Yeah.
All right, Colin, keep getting us through this door.
In this podcast, we review movies and we deliver to you, the listener, an average schmuck's opinion about hidden gems in the wide world of cinema. In the show, we try to target movies that are not absolute blockbuster smashes. We try and target ones that are also not so obscure that you couldn't get your hands on a copy if you wanted to. Instead, we aim for that delightful sweet spot right in the middle. Those movies that maybe you haven't seen, maybe you've heard of, maybe you've seen, but it was a long time ago and they deserve another watch. We review these movies and then we deliver to you, the listener, our take on whether or not they deserve to be dug out of obscurity and then popped back into your DVD player, Blu-ray player, 4K, high definition.
VHS player?
VHS, phonograph.
Bootleg on YouTube.
Yeah, wax cylinder.
Sega CD?
Hire a bunch of minstrels to just dance and act it out in front of you.
I like it.
In this episode, the 9th episode of the series, we reviewed the movie Perfume, The Story of a Murderer. Holy shit.
Could have been an episode of Dragnet.
Okay, little fun tidbit about that. I have seen this movie many, many times. It is one of my absolute top movies to recommend to people. But I actually thought this movie for a very long time was Perfume, A Story of Murder. Mm-hmm. Then I thought it was Perfume, The Story of Murder. Mm-hmm. Now I understand it to be Perfume, The Story of a Murderer.
Yeah.
It took me a little bit too long to catch on to that was the name of the movie, even though I've seen it many times. Yeah, so initial thoughts before we jump into our sort of IMDb specs. We want to get right to it.
I'm still very much digesting. Full disclosure, everybody, this is my first view. To be honest, I'd heard of this movie in passing, maybe when just walking past your colossal DVD obelisk. But wow.
Yeah.
It just sort of happens to you, and you just sort of have to let it happen, and then you can process that it happened after.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is definitely something that you need to sit on for a while. So I feel a little bit bad for Mark. He's got going fresh. Because this is my second viewing. Colin's got a little bit leg up on Mark and me, but at least I have a second time through seeing this particular piece of English-French cinema.
Yeah, for sure.
For the second time. So I can go in it with a little bit of veterinized, but still have to question a good chunk of, especially the last quarter, but we won't get into that until spoilers.
To contextualize this for you, Mark is sitting over here. His eyes are fully dilated. His hair grew about 6 inches, and he's shaking. Mm-hmm. Bad.
6.5. Yeah.
Tim and I have been passing him tambourines. We have been passing him protein shakes, because that is the only use that Mark can serve right now.
Yeah, and most of that's true.
Most. You have to tease apart as the listener what is true, what is not. Meanwhile, we're gonna...
Editor Matthew, put in some tambourine sounds.
We are going to move on to some stuff that is true, allegedly. This movie, Perfume, The Story of a Murderer, hit cinemas in 2006. This movie has a 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb, 2 hours and 27 minutes. That's a substantial runtime, and it does not drag. That is a healthy runtime that this movie deserves and needed, I think. Crime drama. How do we feel about that?
Fair. That's fair. There's a good chunk of that in certain quarter of the film.
I feel like if you had to peg it, that those are probably the categories, but at the same time, this movie's sort of it's a beast unto itself.
Yeah. See, for me, when I hear like a crime movie or whatever, I envision a case unfolding. I envision an investigation. That's what I think. That's what comes to mind when you say crime. And there wasn't much of that in this. I mean, there was, I suppose, a little bit. It's tough with pairing it with a more of a period piece. It's definitely more of
period piece is probably something that should be wrapped into that. I don't think that's like a standard category that IMDb has, but if they did, that should be on there.
Yeah, even almost like a character study. I mean, like it's all about him and his and like getting into his mind.
If you can.
Yeah.
There's times I'm just like, wow.
This is not, NCIS, but which is kind of where my head goes when I hear crime drama. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah. No, I think the best way to put the classifications that IMDb has up here are probably it's the best they could do with the categories they had.
Right. To harken back to a previous review, this is definitely no Citizen X as far as that subgenre goes.
No, yeah. Citizen X hit it right on the head with crime and drama.
Crime and drama and investigation. No, Perfume just skates the surface with that.
All right, so this movie was directed by Tom Tykwer. Sorry, Tom. Tykwer. Mm-hmm. I don't recognize your name, but I feel like I don't recognize a lot of these directors because we're targeting sort of these mid-range films. But sorry, Tom, I'm not familiar with your work, but you did a hell of a job, buddy. Yeah. Stars in this movie, we've got Ben Wishaw. I've never seen him before in anything. He is the star of the film, and I think he knocked it out of the park. Mm-hmm. I think he embodied the character well, but I think we'll get into that a little bit later. We got a little-known actor, Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah,
I believe his name is.
I think his only other role was The Conscience.
That's it.
Yeah, and Joan of Arc. Yeah. Oh my gosh! Wow, what a repeat actor! Yay, go us!
Yeah.
Dustin Hoffman, you probably know from The Graduate, from Hook, from Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium. If you're a younger listener,
Schwier, maybe.
Oh,
so good. Schwier.
Oh, so good. I get the chills. Yeah, you know who Dustin Hoffman is, and if you don't, familiarize yourself with his body of work because it's amazing and substantial.
Because he's not Richard Gere.
Yeah, thank us in the emails. Another big name in this, we had Professor Snape, or,
Alan Rickman.
As you may know him, Mr. Alan Rickman, R.I.P., the late. The late great. Everything that this man touched that I've come across has been gold. And because he's no exception.
What did you like him more as? Did you like him more as Snape, or did you like him more as Hans Gruber?
Oh man, I liked him more in Galaxy Quest.
Oh,
yeah, didn't think I was going there. But
Dr. Lazarus.
So good. But no,
by Grabthar's hammer.
Shall have revenge. No, but seriously though, everything that he does, I really enjoy seeing him on screen.
I liked him best as Metatron.
Ooh. Okay, by the way, Galaxy Quest and Dogma are both on our list, yes. So we will definitely be tearing those up here pretty shortly. Anybody else that we sort of recognize in this film? I didn't see anybody else that I can think of off the top of my head. No. A lot of sort of unnamed people, which I think helped this film along a lot. Let's get into the description of the movie. So IMDb has this as Jean-Baptiste Grenouille, who's played by Ben Wishaw, born with a superior olfactory sense, creates the world's finest perfume. His work, however, takes a dark turn as he searches for the ultimate scent. Yeah, that's the nuts and bolts of it. I think that's pretty well crafted. This is the movie that, like, if you know something about it, you don't really want to show your hand. You just sort of want to let somebody see it for the first time without giving too much away. And I feel like that crafts it really nicely in a way that you know what the movie's about, but it doesn't give the...
It doesn't give away the secrets to the movie.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
And honestly, I think with this specific movie, and this isn't giving anything away because we haven't gotten into spoilers yet, it's a movie almost meant to make you feel things. It's meant to make you experience things. It's meant to like put you through something. I think even if you were to just describe the whole movie to somebody, you wouldn't do it justice. It's almost like a Dunkirk or something that is. I mean, obviously we're going to talk about it in the intangibles section here, but like it's the atmosphere, it's the life that's breathed into this movie. I think for me, again, I'm still digesting it, but it wasn't so much the plot or the story that jumped out to me. It was the experience.
I think one thing that I think you might be driving at, and that I would agree with, is personally for me, I don't think there's anything else out there quite like this film. I think it's very much a work unto itself, which is very unique, especially in modern cinema. I don't think you need to be a film fanatic to know that we are living in the age of reboots, sequels, prequels, and adaptations, and it's exhausting. Mm-hmm. So to see something like this crop up, I mean, it wasn't yesterday, but 2011?
2006.
Sorry, 2006, my bad.
Second youngest movie we've watched on the podcast.
We were still well into the age of what do we want to call this? The age of remakes.
The age of lazy. The age of lazy screenplay.
Yeah. The golden age of dragging your feet.
Right.
Yeah. Not to like knock Marvel movies or anything, but this was like right before the Marvel Cinematic Universe took over and became the tentpole movies of.
What did we have? We had Iron Man.
An entire generation.
Yeah, Iron Man was what, 2007?
2000.
Yeah, 7 or 8.
Oh, what was that?
So this was right there.
Right there.
They had gained a slight foothold with the X-Men movies.
A little bit, yeah.
And Spider-Man had some marginal success. Mm-hmm. But they hadn't really crafted the modern MCU until the first Iron Man. So yeah, it definitely stands apart, and I dig that about it. So I'm showing my hand a little here. We're going to jump into recommendations. Mm-hmm. I recommend the shit out of this movie to anybody I feel who can handle it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the best way of putting it. It's a very intense movie. It's a movie that is not for the faint of heart, and it's also not for, I would say, not for younger audiences. But if you are an adult and you are looking for something you haven't seen before, and you are looking for an amazing film that there was a lot of time and energy poured into, this is the movie that you need to see. Even if it's not your favorite movie ever, I don't think anybody can get out of this movie not respecting it. And I think that's important. So yeah, I'm way, way, way over the 50% mark with this movie.
Tim?
Gentlemen, I think the first time in my life, I am just below the 50% mark. I don't have confidence in general audiences being able to walk away from this movie, or even finish this movie. I think they'll get to about the point where the tone shifts for like the second or third time of this film, and they'll just turn it off. So, unfortunately, for general audiences, nope, I don't recommend it. For cinephiles, absolutely. Stay through it. It's a trip. You're gonna have some questions. You're gonna have some head-scratching moments. But for folks out there in podcast land, buckle your seatbelts and get ready for a bumpy ride if you can bear it. But I don't recommend it to the general audience.
No faith in humanity coming out of right field here with Tim. Mark, where you at?
Sorry.
I'm really going to
Just shy of the 50% mark. Just shy of it.
I'm going to echo some of those sentiments here, because I think that this movie is too intense for most people. I'm still digesting it. I'm grateful to have seen it. There are people that I would recommend it.
Oh, absolutely.
It's an experience, it really is. But I think in my personal life, I think there are more people in my sphere that I wouldn't be able to recommend it to than there are people that I would. Now, like I said, I'm still digesting it. This is an experience, and I'm very grateful to have seen it. And it, not to use some of your words here, Tim, but like to cinephiles, people who are looking for art from their movies. This is that, I think, in my opinion. But I don't know. Is it over the 50%? By what criteria? I'm spinning my wheels here.
Your personal, did you like it enough to would you recommend it to yourself or to somebody who you view similar to you?
Yes. Yes, if I'm gonna talk to myself 3 hours ago before we started this, 100% I would recommend it to that version of me. But
not for everybody.
it's definitely not for everybody. In a way that I think none of the movies that we have reviewed thus far, have been. But man, again, I think my lack of words and my wheel spinning should speak volumes, even if I can't articulate what I'm trying to say.
I can relate to Mark exactly, because I've had this conversation before where a fellow movie junkie and I were in the room and they were like, well, what is the strangest movie you've ever seen? And after watching this with Colin in his living room one time, that, Perfume took the center stage for that. I can't describe the ending. The IMDb sums it up pretty good for just the tip of the iceberg, but the the execution of this movie, I can't make it manageable for general audiences. I just can't do it.
Yeah,
there's no words for it.
And it's not just that it's this B movie that's just
no.
bonkers off the wall, that you can't
It's
describe.
very well shot, yeah.
It's
all that good stuff.
It's very well made, and it's almost because it's well made and it's so unique and rich and weird and.
So I think what we have here at this point is 3 people in the room who love this movie. I think everybody has a general understanding that this is the kind of movie that maybe not everybody would be into. So I think what I would say to our listeners at this point is, if you are unsure, feel free to stray into the spoiler territory of this episode. You'll get a better flavor for what is going on, and if it's the kind of thing that you might like or not like, and then maybe make your decision from there. I think if there's any part of you that wants to see this movie just based on what we've said so far, turn off the podcast and go watch it before you listen to the spoiler section, because the movie is enhanced by your lack of knowledge. So, with that being said, are we ready to move to spoilers?
Yeah, hang on. You said this movie is enhanced by your lack of knowledge. Like that. That's a good description. That little snippet. This movie is enhanced by your lack of knowledge. I went into it not looking at the cover, not seeing any trailers. I knew nothing going in. And that's, I think, part of the reason why I'm so, baffled.
And I had the same experience. I think this is something I can say before spoilers, that, I had a buddy at work who was telling me about this movie, and he was giving me, far more information that I normally like to have about a movie. And I was like, wow, that sounds really interesting, blah, blah, blah. I sort of stashed it away in the file cabinet of my mind at the bottom of a drawer until Blockbuster was having a sale. Yes, I said that. Yeah, just get it.
That's normally my line.
You leave me alone with my Blockbuster.
That's normally me with rentals from 20 years ago.
And so Blockbuster's having a sale. I find just the disc, not even not even the packaging. And
I was like, a copy of Coraline.
Yeah, I was like, oh, Daryl was telling me about this. I gotta pick it up. I bought it on a whim. I watched it that night, and I was in the same position as Mark. I had a disc that gave nothing away. It had been 2 years since this movie had been described to me by somebody who had watched it 3 weeks prior. So, I was not very well versed in what I was going to experience, and it was a happy experience, at least for me personally. So, let's track here a little bit into spoiler territory. Spoilers! Wow, that was obnoxious. You had an air horn, a drunk goat getting violated, and you had Tim, who I think had a close head injury. Thank God we have the ability to edit.
No, leave it in there. God
damn it! I stick by to my non-PC jokes.
Well, at least he knows.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, let's spoil the shit out of this movie.
Right.
I want to start off here. This is a dirty fucking movie. This is a gross.
Filthy.
It is a gross, disgusting movie.
Oh yeah, you thought Les Mis was gross in the opening? Nah, this takes it up to 11.
Yeah, but it's gross not in a way that your standard human centipede or teeth is gross.
Nope, everybody still has clean teeth in this movie. It's okay. Yeah.
It's a natural gross.
No, yeah, it is. It is.
Dirt under the fingernails and fish markets and tanneries.
Everything is filthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, I believe, I mean, granted, full spoiler alert, I was not alive in the 1700s.
Oh, baby Mark!
But
you don't want to be, trust me, buddy.
This is what I would imagine is probably what it would be like. It's dirty, it's gross, no one showers, no one... It's
It's basically the exact opposite of your standard spaghetti western where, like, it's supposed to be depicting, like, the Wild West and, like, all the streets are clean and the cowboy comes in with, like, pressed clothing and coiffed hair. Like, it's the opposite of that. It's like this takes place in the streets of Paris, or it opens in the streets of Paris, and it is fucking disgusting. Yes. There is shit literally running in the streets. There are, like, piles of guts on the streets. Mm-hmm. People are puking. People are shitting around corners. Mm-hmm. Like,
everybody's hair is messy. Yeah. If they have a wig on, great. But if after that takes it off, it's like, ugh.
All their hands are just, like, black with filth. Ugh.
But yeah, even though there are some scenes that, like, underscore that, where, you know, like you were saying, there's some vomiting and shitting and yada yada.
But everybody flosses, so it's okay.
Yeah. Even when they're just panning over the audience and they're not doing anything that is, like, viscerally disgusting, their appearance is disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the glistening of the grime, you know, it's so tangible. It's so well captured.
It's like that. It's that attention to detail that I think makes this movie great. Is like, I truly believed that they sent a letter to every extra and said, do not shower for 3 weeks before showing up to film this movie. Because it looked like that.
Mm-hmm. I have to give it a nod for not shying away from some dark shots, some shadowy, intentionally doom and gloom looking shots, some barns, some basements, stuff like that, candlelight. They definitely didn't shy away from that, from the natural daylight to the cellar internal light. I give them mad props for that. That they didn't skimp on, like, making people, like, half exposed.
Definitely. Yeah. So let's start rolling with the overview, and we will, I think, pick up, like, elements of this movie that are just it just gets better and better.
Worse or worse.
Or worse or worse, depending on who you are.
You take.
So this movie, as the IMDb description said, follows
Jean-Baptiste
Grenois. And it literally starts
with his birth.
Several moments before his birth. Mm-hmm. His mother is a fishmonger, and she is in the nastiest part of Paris, the fish market. And she literally climbs underneath her stall, gives birth to him, and then kicks him away with the intent of killing him, and then goes try to help.
Dead, just leaving him for dead.
Right. And she goes to help a customer, and the customer notices the baby because the baby starts crying, and she ends up dead as a result of trying to kill her baby. So she gets sent to the gallows. He gets sent to an orphanage, but very early on, it gets identified that smelling is his thing. I would also like to add a note that this entire movie, we totally forgot to mention this. This entire movie is narrated by John Hurt.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And John Hurt, Alien, V for Vendetta, take your pick. John Hurt is absolutely incredible, and he does an incredible job as narrator, really carrying you through the story and sort of filling in some of the details and gaps in plot that I don't think the dialogue could have captured.
And it really made it almost feel... There were elements to it that, like, almost like black comedy, you know, where, you know, we're in spoilers here. Every person that cares for him, I don't even want to use that word. Every person who he interacts with in any kind of substantial way dies after he leaves their presence, and it almost has this, like, comedic spin to it. It's not played as comedy, but the way it's presented, you know, it's like, you know, you just kind of, you know what's happening when he leaves their presence, and it's narrated in a way that's like, man, I'm telling a story, and it's, I don't know.
He's basically Good Luck Chuck, but people die instead of find their soulmate.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and God, I love John Hurt from the day he was born to the day he, you know, left this world. But man, sometimes he takes me out of the movie, though. I do love. I want to preface, like, you know, going again, prefacing for spoilers ahead of time, one of his lines is my quote, so I do love his contribution to this movie, but a little bit later, kind of takes me out of it.
See, that's interesting. I feel like it really helped weave me through the movie, but if that was something you were picking up, maybe it's something that some of our listeners will be sensitive to. So, after a beat, he is in this orphanage. The other kids do not like him. They sense that he's strange. They tried several times to kill him or to get him away. He is developing his sense of smell all through this time. He ultimately ends up getting sold to a tannery, which is...
I want to say, like, hang on. He's not just developing his sense of smell. He is Clark Kent in Kansas developing his super sense of smell.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
he is very much able to
true.
smell an apple on the tree, a tree branch falling, the river 2 miles away, the toad in the river, the little eggs that they're laying in the river.
Yeah, it's definitely presented like a supernatural kind of thing.
It's very much above the normal range of a human or a dog or any other animal on the planet.
See, I think that's interesting because, like,
which is fine.
I've actually like discussed this before with other people, and I feel like it's interesting in that it's definitely superhuman, but I don't know if it's quite supernatural, which
Smelling
is kind of
things
interesting.
In a river? Smelling things in a river.
I mean, when you hear like it's supernatural
for a human.
For a human, it's superhuman, but I think there are animals in the animal kingdom that can, like a turkey vultures have, like the best sense of smell. They can smell things like miles away. Like foxes can smell mice underneath the snow
when they're near it. And like
near-ish, but I mean, like, the whole like a shark can sense like a drop of blood in like however many.
Sure.
Yeah, and that is kind of what it's like. It's he's detecting a drop of blood from miles away like a shark.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And I mean, like, I will concede that it's right on the border there to supernatural.
For human,
it's way beyond human capacity. But that I'm drawing a distinction here between what is supernatural versus superhuman.
Yeah.
He is, in the same way that Spider-Man may not be doing things that are like supernatural. He's doing things that are superhuman.
Yeah.
Sure.
So a pivotal part of the movie, he's with the tannery. He makes a name for himself, and at this point, he's kind of trusted enough. The guy who's running it says, "Okay, grab some stuff together. We're gonna go into the city. We're gonna sell some pelts or whatever." And
let's also like take a moment to just appreciate how beautiful it was that a tannery is what was chosen as like the thing he was sold into labor for, because like tanneries are notoriously smelly. Like they're the kind of place that would not only turn your stomach, but like, I don't know this for a fact, but the kind of shit that they use to like tan hides and stuff, that shit's got to just like burn up your olfactory system. I got to imagine that the person walking out of a tannery after 10 years of working there probably couldn't smell a fart if their nose was in an ass.
Jesus, yeah.
Well, yeah, they're processing and flattening flesh. So
aren't we all, Mark?
Yeah. So he goes into town, and while he is in town, he's confronted with all these new smells, but most importantly, he smells a woman for the first time, and he follows her down an alleyway. Long story short, he ends up confronting her. Well, he ends up sneaking up on her and grabs her. There are some people that kind of walk into the alleyway, and in an effort to keep her quiet, because obviously she's being creeped on, she starts screaming. He holds his hand over her mouth, and she passes away while he's hiding. And
this is a great euphemism. Yeah. It's like, she passes away gently. She's like, no, he definitely smothered her to death. But I think the interesting thing
he wasn't trying to kill her.
He was not trying to kill her. That's true.
And I think that carries a theme throughout this whole movie.
Absolutely.
He does not view other people as people. They are products. They are ingredients. He doesn't feel anything when he kills her, and he is infinitely more distraught that her pheromones fade as she dies, and doesn't seem to care anything about her life that faded away. It's all about the scent.
And a brilliant bit of acting, like, he looked genuinely confused. So basically, like, as Mark said, he like sneaks up on her, not because he's trying to attack her. He just wants to smell her, but that's really fucking weird, and people don't like that. So he's like right up behind her in the dark, in an alley, and she turns around, notices him, and starts to scream, and he doesn't want her to scream. Like, that's it. Like, he doesn't grab her because he wants to attack her. He grabs her because she starts screaming, and there are people walking by, and he doesn't want to get in trouble. So he, like, puts his mouth over her hand and nose, and then she dies, and when everything calms down, he, like, looks down at her, and he's just shocked that she's dead.
It's like a Lenny and his rabbits kind of situation.
That's a good way of putting
analogy.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love how this movie is shot because it does present itself as a pretense for romance, a pretense for suspense, and it subverts your expectations a lot of times because you're seeing him very infatuated with this French fruit teller, fruit vendor.
Yeah.
Comes back to her several times during the movie.
Several times.
In his head.
He's very obsessed with her and like taken by her. So it's very shot in what would be a romantic or sexual pretense, but the movie really goes hard left with the execution of her.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to have a sexual component to his existence.
Which is brought up several times by the narrator and is ultimately sort of tied back to this person led nothing more than a life of nothing less rather than a life of brutality. I mean, he literally was kicked away by his mother seconds after he came out of her in an attempt to kill him or in an attempt to ignore him and deprive him of love. I mean, like, that was his fucking entry to the world. Then he just basically tries to get, like, people try and kill him his entire life. He gets whipped and beaten and starved and a very savage life, and as a result can't love anything.
Yeah. So he, again, and I don't want to linger on this one scene for a while, but I think it's really important to the movie, is he's trying to, he's sniffing all over her body. He tears her clothes off, again, not in a sexual way, he's like, almost like he's trying to absorb her essence. And he's sniffing her body, sniffing her, her stomach, her leg, her arms. And you can tell that, like, as he's doing this, he seems to be getting less and less of what he's after. He actually uses his hands and, like, scoops at her skin to try to, like, get her smell. And it's just, it's leaving. And you can tell that he's,
distraught. He's
very distraught that he can't smell her in the same way. And that is what kind of kicks off his journey. He at that point decides, and the narrator certainly helps, he is going to try to preserve that smell. And we know,
and all smells,
but specifically the pheromones that he's aware of and he can smell, but don't have an odor per se. It's,
nobody else seems to be able to detect them, or anything else for that matter.
But they're affected by them.
And he is so enthralled by various scents that he wants them to live forever. So he ends up, inadvertently, through luck, getting assigned a delivery to a perfumer played by Dustin Hoffman. And he's an Italian perfumer who came to Paris, made his fortune. Maybe that's a bit strong, but he had a series of successes when he first came. It's been like 30 years. He's washed up. He hasn't come out with anything new, and nobody is in his store and buying his stuff anymore. So after this delivery, he basically convinces Dustin Hoffman of his skill. And then after he has convinced him of his skill, it's a short throw to say Dustin Hoffman hires him as an apprentice or as a journeyman, and starts to teach him how to mix perfumes, what goes into them, how to distill essential oils, which is like one of the major techniques for capturing smell. And then also in this, a really sort of important plot point, Dustin Hoffman in this lesson gives him a description of the three components of all perfumes.
The three chords,
yeah. He says it just like that, like the just like chords in music, or just like notes in music. Perfume is a symphony and it's a harmony, and there are 3 major chords. There's the head chord, that's your first impression. It lasts a couple of moments. The heart chord, which is the theme of the play, I'm doing air quotes right now, that is basically what the perfume is about. And then there is the bass chord, and that is the chord that will stick with you, linger for days. That's the one you'll dwell on. And he sort of explains this to him, and then tells him this legend of an Egyptian tomb that was opened where there was a perfume that had a 4th chord that nobody knew what it was, but legend has it that when it was opened up, everybody on Earth stopped and thought that they were in paradise for a moment. And it's a very defining scene, and it's the scene that actually causes him to set out to create his own 3 chords with a 4th chord of new smells. For what purpose, who knows, other than to preserve and to mix and to,
Well, that was one of the things, I mean, I don't want to say that I related to, but I found, interesting is he wasn't in it for money. He wasn't in it for fame. It was a project. It was a mission. It was his calling. It was his destiny. It was something, it was greater than himself. I really felt almost like he didn't have a personality. It was all drive,
their obsession.
Yeah, he gets beaten down, criticized, tortured throughout the movie in various ways. And I never felt like any of it meant anything to him, because ultimately his calling was greater than anything that anyone could do to his body. Because his mission was more important than all.
Yeah. Jean-Baptiste is a very tough protagonist to follow, if he even is that, because his sole mission is to trap essence, which is very, in his time and age, both beautiful and deadly. The flowers are killed to trap the essence of their scent. We're in spoilers now?
Oh, yeah.
The women he kills are trapped in the essence so he can complete his mission. There's no relatability to that. I don't know anyone who wants to set out to complete a perfume.
No, not in his methods are relatable.
Yeah.
But his singular vision, was something that I found
his call to action.
And I think what what you're saying, Mark, is that's the beauty of this movie is it really showcases a character who has only one thing on their mind. And it's not like people are in his way and get out of my way or I'll kill you. People are the objects that he needs in order to do his thing. And there's nothing more to it. There's no sexuality involved. There's no I can also rob this person. It's I don't give a shit if you are dripping in gold. I want your essence. And if that translated to a different object, people would relate to it a lot more. And I think that's why they set the stage with the delivery of flowers. You've got 10,000 rose heads that are sitting, that are going to be boiled down into essential oil. Nobody gives a shit that you just killed 10,000 roses. People don't care about that. And he feels the same way about people as we do about those roses. He sees them as just a means to an end. A means to getting the oil that he needs and wants. Yeah. And that's really interesting. There are not a lot of movies where you have a protagonist, or an antagonist for that matter, whose singular vision drives them to a state of whole independence from other people's state of being. Yeah. It's totally isolated, which is really incredible.
Yep. Go ahead.
It's very peculiar. There's been plenty of movies that have shown us the perspective through the serial killer, but I don't think many of them hit the narrative through this lens.
Yeah,
right. Nearly as much, not nearly as subtle, I should say.
Yep. So in the interest of kind of continuing, and not stalling here. So Dustin Hoffman's character, he learns everything he can from him. He leaves him. He goes to this new town. And his mission at that point is to figure out how to distill what are essentially the pheromones of another person. And there's a lot of trial and error. And he eventually finds this process where he is able to preserve those pheromones. And at that point, it turns into, it's not a montage, but...
It sort of is, yeah. I mean, it's like a dark montage. I mean, like, when you say montage, people think, like,
music
Stallone, like, running through, like, snow with, like, fucking, like, an axe on his back. Yeah. But this is, I mean, in the traditional sense, this is a montage, yeah. It's just a really dark one.
Yeah, he's killing women, all attractive women, specifically almost for that reason. Healthy, 20s, whatever, it doesn't matter.
And through this montage, I mean, the score is like... I mean, the score through the whole movie is just fucking amazing. Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. It is super dark. It is super, like, grandiose and operatic. Is probably the only way to put it. I mean, like, and I say operatic because there are literally, like, fucking opera singers singing in the back sometimes. Oftentimes they'll have, like, an entire choir in the back, like, bringing you through this movie. Like, you feel like you're riding on a ship. It's so driving to your emotions. You feel like you're bouncing up and down, mostly down when you're watching this movie. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Amazing score.
Yep. So eventually he gets everybody, or he gets almost everybody that he wants. There's one final woman that he's after, and again, it doesn't happen in a scene, but ultimately he procures her essence, and it kind of culminates to this scene where he's captured, and this was a scene that I had an issue with, and I don't know how much I loved it. Maybe it was important, to the character. I don't know. I still haven't quite digested it, but again, he's captured. They know what he's done, and he's walking up to the executioner's block, and he has this
vial.
This vial of the perfume that he's basically harvested 13 women for, and as soon as he pops it open, everyone around him loses their minds, and they start fornicating in the streets. Literally, an entire group of what was probably 500 people start fucking in the streets.
500 is like 5,000, like 10,000, like fucking just massive orgy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was an entire courtyard full of people.
Yeah, it was a lot of people, including the bishop that was proceeding over the execution.
Allegedly.
Yeah. I didn't love this scene. It felt for me like a departure from the rest of the movie.
It's a big jump. It's a big jump in tone because magic perfume is magic.
Yeah.
It's like that's the thing. It's like it goes from something that's like, oh man, down on his luck orphan kid looking to make his way in the world. Oh, well, he's got super nose. Cool, maybe you can use that. Oh, he murdered that girl. Oh shit. Oh, that's bad. That's a weird tone shift. Oh, he's gonna be an apprentice at the perfume shop.
Down in his luck, super smeller. Like, is he fucking hitching across the country with like?
Yeah, no, he's
his JanSport backpack.
Like, he's not lying.
Him and Underdog are gonna have a good, and Huckleberry Hound, they're all gonna get together and they're gonna be down on their luck.
Yeah.
Anyways, and then he's like, "Oh shoot, I'm a perfume apprentice. Oh well, I got captured the Endus. Where do I go? Oh, grass. Okay, bye. See you, Dustin Hoffman. Oh shit, that blew up. And then he goes, oh, I guess I became a serial killer. Oh shit, that's bad. That's a tone shift. And then what else happens? Oh, now I'm an angel. I'm incarnate because of my magic. Vial is magic.
Tim, I don't want to like speak out of turn here, but I feel like you just sucked all the fucking magic out of that movie. But you're right.
The movie did jump that way. 4 or 5 times it jumps, and it's like, what?
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree.
How do you not agree with that? Literally, that is what happens.
I don't. No, I mean, like
literally, that is what happens. Magic happens.
What you said happened, but I don't agree that there was like dramatic tone shifts. I will say that scene in the courtyard was probably the most dramatic shift, but the whole idea behind that scene was everybody is engaging in like the most carnal expression of love possible. You have thousands of bodies writhing in an expression of like pure love that this perfume has elicited, and he can't feel it.
Yeah, no, now...
And that is why it's necessary, because it's not one person. It's not that girl with the red hair. It's not 2 people. It's not 50 people. It's thousands, and he could have anybody. He could engage in this like massive display of love. Old, young, big, small, like dark hair, light hair. It doesn't matter. Male, female. Everybody's there. Everybody's having a good time, and he feels nothing, and it crushes him. It is the ending blow, because the whole, like what I was saying about like the collecting these vials to create the different chords of this ultimate perfume is like, I said I don't know why, and like that's true, because they never explain why he's motivated to do this, except at the end where basically you come to realize he didn't even know why he was motivated to do this. It had something to do with a feeling that he couldn't feel. So he couldn't love anybody, and he couldn't be loved by anybody, but he knew he was missing out. And his drive to do this was somehow enmeshed with that. And this scene drove the point home that, nope, even with a perfume that could literally conquer the world, you are powerless to change the fact that nobody's ever going to love you, and you can't love anybody else, which is crushing.
I will accept that viewpoint. You know, if you look at the courtyard orgy scene as a tool to help underscore his inhumanity, you know, when all of that stuff is going on, you mentioned he's crushed, but he stands there and he's looking upon his creation, more or less. You know, he made this happen. He's crying. You know, you see tears rolling down his face. You know, he's having arguably his only emotional reaction in the entire movie. Mm-hmm. And I think it was, you're right. I think it's because he can pull this out of everyone, but again, he can't, it's out of his reach. Mm-hmm. You know, what's the point in conquering the world if you can't feel it, if it doesn't do anything for you?
And while I would say that this scene is definitely like a big tone shift in the film, it's necessary because the beginning of the film, the first like 90% of the film is so dark. And like this scene had to be basically, it had to be light and it had to exude love.
And that's for the first time ever, he's wearing a primary color. He's wearing a blue suit.
Yeah, it basically had to drive home that like, hey, we're not talking about like guts in the street anymore and like horrible things and death and people getting murdered. We're talking about the theme of this particular scene is love and jubilation. And that's definitely something that...
Is that the arc of the scene? Because it feels like more like manipulation and fornication and lust and base human desires that our character can't even feel either.
I think I was closer to that, but I see what you're saying.
I think it is love, and I think like...
You think it's love?
Yeah, because I think like that's what they're driving home when they're talking about like... he was having a discussion with Dustin Hoffman at one point in the film, and he said something to the effect of like smell is like our way of understanding the soul or something like that. And like in that phrase, you're basically capturing the notion that smell is such a base sense that allows us to sort of express love and gratitude. And it's the kind of thing that elicits emotions unlike any other scent. And
now, I have to please pardon me for cutting you off, Colin. But I have to do a hard stop on that. Like, smell makes me think of my grandmother's cooking that I will never have again. Smell makes me think of family dinners at Thanksgiving and maybe a passionate night with a person that I love very deeply. Smell does not make me forget the murder of my daughter. Smell doesn't make me forget.
Well, that's the suspension of belief. Exactly. Like, this isn't a biopic.
Exactly. That's where again the tone shifts again. Where it's the supernatural. Where it's the supernatural super sniffer who can manipulate, and now he's reached max ace level 5,000, where he can be like, now I will make everyone love me.
No, but I think
he's an angel.
That's present through...
He's an angel. What do you know what a fucking angel smells like? That literally cannot be defined. Literally cannot be defined what an angel smells like. So why the fuck would Alan Rickman suddenly forgive him.
That's true. And I think that is
so
where...
that's a bigger leap in the 4th chapter. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that's where I think the magic element comes from.
Exactly.
So
Perfume magic is magic.
If you have to have that suspension of disbelief, and I think that there is definitely some supernatural elements to the first, few acts of this movie, but this final one, it really just kind of drives it home that everything that he was doing was culminating to this point. And if you're not on board, I mean, you're right. He confesses to murdering this Alan Rickman's daughter, and Alan Rickman, he sees everyone falling apart, having sex around him, and he rejects it, and he says, "I know what you did," and he approaches him. He walks up to the block. He has a sword in his hand, and once he gets close to the character, he drops his sword, and he forgive me, and all of it kind of washes away. I see where your point is, and how it might seem like it betrays logic and reason. But it really just kind of underscores the supernatural element of this. Sure.
I do also
it's that pinch of disbelief.
Yeah, and I do also almost, I almost want to get semantic here and take issue with the use of the words magic and supernatural, because they sort of elicit a Harry Potter type conjuring something from nothing.
It's literally a charm potion.
I feel
he literally made a charm potion from dead hookers.
I feel it's an extension of things that are already there. People have a sense of smell. Some people have a better sense of smell. Animals have an incredible sense of smell. He's teetering on the edge of an animal sense of smell. Smell
got a
can
magic traveling apothecary kit where he could boil the essence of Alan Rickman's daughter.
Yeah.
Why does he have
smell
that?
can elicit emotions. It can elicit strong emotions.
Yes,
it can make... I've seen people cry because of smells.
Yes.
It's just one step beyond that. It's not he unsheathes this potion and the world collapses into a black hole.
No.
It's one step beyond what actually happens in the real world. It is a suspension of the power of smell. The whole movie is about smell. It's completely reasonable that they would take it to these levels. That's the theme of the movie, is smell right beyond where we think it goes. You're supposed to be the duddard in the fish market in Paris who doesn't know their ass from their elbow when it comes to smell. He is this genius savant that can smell things thousands of feet away, that can discern between all of these various scents. That's what you're going into with this movie. So I don't want the listeners to walk away thinking that he's got a magic potion that's boom, you're green now. Boom,
but
those boots are walking by themselves. And it's
Colin, I have to push back a little bit. Yes, our character is well established that he is the Superman of smell. Smelling from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the sea, he can fucking follow horses after a day's journey. This is how good he is. He walks like a man, but he can follow horses after a day's journey to find the woman he's gonna murder. He's a Superman. And when Macy's pops a new fragrance, sample, not everybody in the mall goes fucking orgy mode.
But that's the whole point.
Again,
that's the whole point.
It's more than one step beyond, though. It's more than one step beyond. It's 12 steps beyond.
That's the whole point, though, is two things that you got, wrong there. One, the perfume is different than other perfumes.
Right, because it's made of dead women. And I love smelling corpses.
And two, the whole Macy's thing, that's exactly what we're talking about. There's other perfume in this movie.
Yes.
And it doesn't make people go into orgies.
Because they made it right, and not out of dead women.
I think they used lime.
Yeah, lime and a little bit of orange blossom.
So I think
put the lime in the coconut.
Drink it all up.
What we've been underscoring here for the last 10 minutes here is that this scene here at pretty much the end of the movie
last 15 minutes. Yeah.
Is the divisive one of the movie. If you're not on board with it, it's gonna pull you right out. And if you're on board with it, it's gonna underscore many of the reasons why you enjoyed this movie. I think you're going to focus on the tears that he was having and his disconnection, or his disconnect to humanity. and his experience, or you're gonna feel like it's a magic potion. And I can see both perspectives on it. It's really divisive. Again, carrying it through so that we can kind of continue on here, because I think we're already about an hour or so. That scene kind of plays out. He basically just walks out of the city because everybody, including the bishop, is naked. And he goes back to Paris, and he walks back to the fish market where he was born. And you see these, you see the wretch of the town just kind of milling about at night. And he kind of walks over. He pops the cork on his potion, on his masterpiece, and the people consume him. And
I'm gonna suck his dick.
Well,
I swear to God, somebody said that.
They basically
they didn't
eat him.
They rip him apart.
Yeah, they dogpile him, and he's not there when they leave. And that's kind of how it ends.
Yep.
Yeah.
This movie is absolutely gorgeous.
It is.
Every scene in this movie is like a fucking painting. Mm-hmm. It is so well lit. The colors are amazing. Indeed. Like, the scenes in the city look like it's either like Brahm or like Rembrandt. Like, it's either something horrific and dark and gothic and brutal, or it's so well lit and so... Like, it's basically like everything's dark and then the characters are lit up like a fucking Christmas tree. It's incredible. The lighting is just like something else. And then out in the country,
lavender fields.
Yeah, it's like Van Gogh.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's amazing. Yeah.
Just fields of lavender and beautiful, like, brick buildings. And I cannot say more about how beautiful this movie is.
Southern France. I'm guessing it's Southern France. I think that's what it was.
Yeah. Just...
I'm speculating.
Visually, it's a great movie.
This movie, I mean, it's also just so damn creative. Like,
concept. If you told me this concept, like at a pitch meeting, like, what the fuck? How are you gonna make this? Mm-hmm. You're gonna make this? Wait, Dustin Hoffman's on board? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there's a scene that transitions to another scene by flying up his nose, and that doesn't seem weird. If that doesn't, like, describe to you how creative this movie is, and that not being, like, an element that seems wonky and out of place, I don't know how else to describe it to you. I mean, like, he's, like, as a kid, he's, like, sniffing a dead rat, and it zooms into the rat, and you see, like, the maggots crawling around, and he's, like, this is the kind of stuff he's picking up on, and it's all very necessary to sort of drive home the point again and again and again, that this guy can, like, he can just smell in a way that you cannot perceive, which is pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty amazing, but it's also really, really hard to encapsulate for the general audiences.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, in the same way that how do you describe smell?
Yeah,
how do you describe this movie?
Well, how would you describe... Yeah, exactly. How would you describe somebody who could see 200 miles away, And like they could see an ant taking a fart or something, or smell an ant taking a fart.
Taking a fart somewhere else.
Taking a fart, yeah.
Just carrying it on its back. Yeah. Well, I know sometimes we'll go over these individual things, but we've definitely covered, directing, some writing. You talked about score, very creative. We talked about some intangibles. Is there anything else that you guys want to like just hone in on, just various just aspects of this movie? I think we kind of covered it when we were just kind of going through.
I mean, I liked everything. I didn't like nothing.
Nothing. Mm-hmm. Even Alan Rickman's portrayal of, all right, girls, hide and seek is over.
But that's a part of the beauty of Alan Rickman.
That man is not only a national treasure, he's a world treasure. You hold your tongue.
Stop playing pin the tail on the donkey. I love you.
If anybody out there who's an Alan Rickman fan wants Tim's address, I will give it to you, and you can settle this with him, because I'm not the one making fun of Alan Rickman.
Hang on now. I'm not making fun. I am paying homage to my Lord and Savior, Sir Alan Rickman. Yeah, that's right. He should have been knighted. I make out with his Severus Snape poster every night before bed. It's on my wall, above my bed.
I feel like that also might prompt some people to want your address for different reasons.
Or no, he's mine!
Maybe for the same reason.
He is mine! Yeah. He is mine, and my Patronus is Padfoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you guys feel ready to move into ratings?
Let's jump into quotes real quick.
Quotes. Oh yeah,
Real quick.
yes. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, what's your favorite quote?
So my quote for this, this I believe, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but this was.
You're wrong.
Okay, well,
I will correct you. Hang on. Let me cite your sources.
No, at that divisive scene that we were talking about for a while, one of the characters, I believe it was the bishop, who kind of hollers out, "This is no man, this is an angel." That I think just captures that entire scene. They were all ready to watch a good old-fashioned execution. I mean, they were spitting fire. They were ready to do it. And as soon as he popped that
joints. Beat him in 12 places.
Yeah, this murderer is now an angel.
Yeah.
And that was his mission from the very beginning. So that's why I picked that quote.
It really illustrates that shift and the power that he's gained.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that on his, after that scene when he's on his way back to Paris, the narrator is talking about the power that he has in this vial. He's like, he could take over the world. He could walk into Versailles and talk to the king. He could send the Pope a perfumed letter and declare himself the new Messiah, and everybody would believe him. He could do whatever he wanted, and it all starts with that quote from the bishop that he's an angel.
Yep. So what kind of quotes you guys got?
So I've got, just before that scene, after he gets captured, he's being tortured, and he's suspended upside down by some chains, and he's being lowered into this tank of water, and he gets brought back up, and Alan Rickman is there, and he's basically asking him, "Why did you kill my daughter?" And he keeps asking him that, and he keeps responding with, "I just needed her." And I feel like that's the character right there. Like that whole discussion that we had earlier about his perception of people as just being objects, just being a means to an end. He literally viewed that girl as nothing more than a rose. She was pretty, and he liked the way that she smelled. And he thought no more of killing her and taking her scent than any one of us would at picking a rose.
Yep, putting it in a vase.
It really, it characterized him perfectly almost.
Yep.
And it's the kind of quote that it'll fly right by you if you're not listening for it.
Yep.
I mean, because it's in such an intense scene, too, because, Alan Rickman's looking at menacing, and he's right there, and he's dripping with water, and the executioners are there, and they're like, blah, 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 blah. It's very intense. It's a very emotionally intense scene. So.
What do you got, Tim?
What I got, I'm glad you guys went first, because mine goes all the way peeling back to the beginning of the film, where he has just committed his first victim's absence of life. The young tangerine lady, the young lady selling her fruits.
That can mean multiple things. What do you mean by that?
She's looking to just make her way in the world, and he is obsessed with the smell of her pheromones, hair, body, odor, everything. And after the strangling that Mark had described earlier, so this is less than 30 minutes into the film, I think. John Hurt comes in, and he gives this amazing explanation. It's like, never again wanted to lose that sublime beauty. And that encapsulates the motivation of this serial killer in the making so perfectly at the start of the film. That's where the great tone shift happens finally. That's where you know where you're heading with Jean-Baptiste.
Do we want to jump right into ratings?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Are you ready to rock and roll? I'm surprised you're ready, Mark. This is a lot to digest.
Yeah. You ready, Mark?
Hit us with it.
All right. I think I'm going to give this a 7.1 rose heads. 7.1 rose heads.
Wow, I appreciate that. Of all of the elements of the film, so few of them are actually
beautiful
and nice. I appreciate that you went for rose heads. Well done, sir.
Good job.
It was an element.
Mark is the classiest of all of us. He wears tails to these recording sessions. Yeah. Tim and I are in sweatpants and a t-shirt, and Mark is he's dressed to the nines.
I have
bow tie and tails.
I have a t-shirt on underneath that says, "Where's the beef?"
Yeah, I'm even wearing underpants.
Whoa.
Wah, wah.
Leave the silence in there. All right.
We're gonna put in some crickets and post.
Okay. What kind of rating you got, Colin?
Okay, so I fucking love this movie, and I am particularly sensitive to movies that I feel like the whole purpose of this podcast is for movies that people probably haven't seen or maybe they've only heard of and stuff like that. And I feel like this movie is one of the best examples of that. So extra props to it for that. Plus, just everything was executed so well. It's so beautiful. It's such a creative movie, and it's so far apart from everything else that's come out in the last 20 years. So I'm going big on this. I feel super comfortable with like a solid 8.7.
This is the important part.
8.7 women oils.
Women oils.
Women oils. You heard it first.
No, there's 13 in the case.
I don't know how else to put that.
Oh no, you're so short of your women oil. What happened to the other fraction of the vial that you were doing?
Can you stop by the Walmart and pick me up
What happened to your
woman
ninth
oil?
What happened to your ninth oil? There's only 1/3 of it there.
It's very viscous.
Yeah,
no.
she was really short.
Yeah. So what?
Sure. Oh no, your ninth woman was a midget.
We're bad people.
Whoa, we're bad people.
Okay.
Small person. Sorry, excuse me.
All right,
Small
Tim.
person.
Rating.
There's
And
a lot of editing in this episode.
unit of measurement.
Whew. Alrighty.
Probably.
As much as I love the lighting, the art direction, and the uniqueness of this film. It goes really. It takes the serial killer genre and completely takes you out of left field with it. So it very much surprises you by the end of this film. However, I do have to wag my finger at it for changing tones a little too much and underutilizing such amazing talent and utilizing too much of John Hurt for the narration. It'd be fine if he was just the introduction, because that's a common thing, but man, he steals focus at the end, and that's unforgivable in my book. So, I'm sorry, listeners out there. This intrepid hero has to give it a 5.5. Lovely handkerchiefs in the air.
That is above the 50%.
It is above the 50% mark, and it is a lovely handkerchief there, so you can have your street orgy and get chlamydia and also a tick in your butt.
A tick in your butt.
Right up there.
All right.
Is that what happens in orgies?
In the streets of Versailles, yeah.
Clearly, my orgy experience is limited. I've never had a tick in my butt.
Clearly, you've never had a lovely Sunday evening in Versailles where, just pants off, dance off is happening.
Where the bishops are boning. Oh, man.
Bishops are boning and the wine is a-flowing.
Well, now that we've got
France,
the
2020, baby!
now that we got the handkerchiefs, the woman oil, and the rose
Oil.
heads on the table, I think we're ready to wrap.
Are we wrapping it up like Christmas?
Yep.
All right. Well, that is all for the El Crep review. Thank you for listening. If you have any other ideas for movie reviews, email us at 3. That's the number 3. meninabasement@gmail.com. You can also find us on iTunes and Google Play or wherever you find your podcasts. And until then, I'm Colin McLeod.
Mark Culp here.
Timothy Magic. Bonsoir, intrepid heroes.
Bonsoir.
All right. We'll see you in cyberspace.
Peace.